The last cry in the dust. The planet Morelos was quiet now. Once filled with green lands, music, and alien laughter, now it was only dust and silence. The skies were always gray. The wind carried the ashes of burned cities. Nothing living moved. All the great towers had fallen, all the voices had stopped, except one. Deep inside the ruins of a broken temple, a small voice whispered, "Help, please." It was not loud. It was weak and dry like a dying wind. But somehow, that small cry reached far into space. It moved through broken satellites, across dark moons, and finally touched the ear of a passing old human ship. The ship was old, rusted and patched together with mismatched metal. Its engine made strange coughing sounds as it flew. Inside was a man named Jacob, a human mechanic traveling alone. He wasn't a soldier or a rich explorer. He was just a man with a toolbox and a tired smile. Jacob leaned over the old control screen. The voice repeated, "Help. Someone. Anyone." Jacob blinked. "That's not a system error," he said. "That's real." He pressed a few buttons, cleaned the signal, and played it again. "This is Leary. I'm still here, please." Jacob stood up slowly. "A child?" he whispered. He looked at the map. The signal was coming from Morelos, a forbidden planet marked with a red warning. Dead zone. Do not enter. Everyone knew what happened on Morelos. It was the home of the Morellans, a small, peaceful species with light blue skin and golden eyes. But during the Great Galactic Wars, they refused to fight. They asked for peace, so the Council left them undefended. In the end, no one protected them. The Morellans were wiped out in a single attack. The survivors were hunted. Their name became a forgotten echo. And yet, one voice remained. Jacob's ship AI spoke. "Warning, entering Morelos is dangerous. No rescue available." Jacob didn't answer. He simply pulled a small photo from his pocket. A picture of a girl with dark hair and smiling eyes. His daughter. She had died long ago in a fire. He failed to save her. Now another child was calling for help. "I'm going," he said. The AI replied, "Confirmed." Plotting course to Morelos. Hours later, his ship entered the thick atmosphere of the dead world. The sky was red and orange. Firestorms raged in the distance. Jacob flew low past skeleton cities and black rivers. The air was thin and poisoned. The signal grew stronger. He landed beside a shattered building shaped like a flower. Jacob put on his oxygen mask, grabbed his flashlight and emergency kit, and stepped outside. The ground crunched under his boots. Everything was gray, dead, and broken. He walked slowly into the building. His light flashed across walls with old art, pictures of happy alien families, now covered in ash. Then he saw her, curled in the corner. Under a blanket made from old rags was a tiny figure. Blue skin, golden eyes, arms wrapped around her knees. She looked no older than 7 in human years. Jacob knelt down. "Hey," he said softly. The girl's eyes opened wide in fear. She tried to back away, but her body was too weak. "Don't be scared," Jacob said. He opened the med kit and pulled out clean water. "Here, drink." She stared at him for a moment, then reached out with trembling hands. She drank. Then she looked up at him and whispered, Are you going to eat me too?" Jacob froze. His heart stopped for a second. "What?" he asked. "My people said, humans eat little aliens," she said. Her voice was shaking. "That's why no one came to help us." Jacob knelt lower. "No," he said quietly. "That's not true. I came to help. That's why I'm here." She looked at him. For the first time, her body relaxed just a little. She wasn't sure if he was lying. But he didn't look like the monsters she had imagined. He wrapped her gently in a thermal blanket. "What's your name?" he asked. "Leary," she said. "I'm Jacob," he replied. "Let's get you out of here, Leary." As he carried her outside, the wind howled. The ground cracked. And far above, a camera drone blinked red. It had recorded everything. And now, somewhere deep in space, the council knew. One human had broken the law, and one Miralyn still lived. Jacob's ship, the rust bucket, shook as it lifted off the surface of Morelos. The engines coughed and groaned like an old beast waking up from sleep. Dust clouds swirled outside the windows. Inside, Jacob sat on the floor of the cabin, holding a small alien child wrapped in a silver blanket. Her name was Leary, the last of her kind. She had fallen asleep in his arms, body weak from sickness and hunger. Her blue skin was pale, and her golden eyes were closed, but her tiny hand clutched his shirt like a lifeline. Jacob looked at her, his heart heavy. He hadn't planned for this. He didn't even know what Miralons ate. He had barely enough supplies for himself. But he remembered something. A fire, smoke, a girl's voice calling Papa, then silence. That was years ago. His own daughter gone in a house explosion caused by a faulty generator. Now this little alien was sleeping the same way, curled into him as if she belonged there. Jacob made a quiet promise right then. I couldn't save her, he whispered. But I swear to every star, I'll save you. He gently laid Leary in the small bunk and strapped her in. The ship AI buzzed. Human presence confirmed. One adult, one minor alien, illegal species. High risk. Do you wish to report the minor to Galactic Control? Jacob shut the screen with one hard press. Not a chance. As the ship flew through empty space, Jacob went to work. He searched the archives for Miralyn biology. No solid data, only rumors. They were gentle creatures, good with plants, weak in combat. That's why no one cared when they were wiped out. Cowards, Jacob muttered. He opened a storage box and found a small nutrient pack used for wounded soldiers. He crushed it into liquid and poured it into a cup. Leary stirred as he approached. She blinked. Her voice was soft. Are you still here? I didn't leave. He smiled. Try this. It might taste bad. She sipped it, made a face, then kept drinking. Where are we going? She asked. Jacob paused. Away from this part of space. Somewhere safe. Is there such a place? He didn't answer. Instead, he sat beside her and showed her a small screen with images of stars, planets, and moons. You ever been on a ship before? Leary shook her head. My people didn't like space, they liked trees. We built homes inside living trees. Jacob stared out at the blackness. Then I'll find you a tree, even if it's in the middle of nowhere. She gave a tiny smile. Just for a second. Then her face turned sad. Everyone is gone. My mom, my brother. They said they would come back, but they never did. Jacob looked away. He couldn't promise to bring them back, but he could promise her something else. You're not alone anymore. Later, while Leary slept again, the ship's AI buzzed. Incoming message, secure channel, unknown source. Jacob opened it. A blurry face appeared. Alien, uniformed. To the human pilot of the craft Rust Bucket, you are being watched. The child you carry is classified. Surrender her, and no harm will come to you. Jacob didn't blink. And if I don't, then you both will be hunted. The screen went black. Jacob leaned back and laughed bitterly. Of course. He activated the stealth drive, an old system that only worked when the ship powered down. The ship darkened. The engines cooled. They floated now like a rock in the void. Jacob walked back to the bunk. Leary was awake, eyes wide. I heard the voice, she said. You weren't supposed to. They're coming? Yes. She reached for his hand. Will you give me to them? Jacob looked at her. No, I already told you, you're mine now. We go together. She smiled again, and for the first time in her life she believed someone meant it. Far away on a council warship, an officer watched the signal vanish. The human had gone dark. A message was sent across the galaxy. Locate and capture the human, Jacob. Use all necessary force. The Meyerland child must not survive. But in that moment, inside a quiet little ship drifting in the stars, Jacob made another promise, this one louder, stronger, burning in his chest like fire. He would protect her even if the whole galaxy came for them. The stars outside were calm, silent, peaceful, but inside Jacob's old ship, the Rust Bucket, nothing was calm. Nothing was peaceful. The moment Jacob saved Leary, the last living Meyerland child, his quiet life as a traveling mechanic ended, and, somewhere in a cold, shining control room of the Galactic Law Council, a cold voice spoke. One human has taken possession of a Class Z species. Prepare a bounty alert. Spread it to all registered hunters. A red alert flashed across screens on hundreds of stations and ships. Target, human Jacob, wanted for unauthorized protection of illegal species. Reward, 100,000 credits, dead or alive. Jacob didn't know this yet. He was inside his ship's tiny kitchen, heating a meal pouch while Leary sat at the table watching the stars through the window. She had never seen stars from space before. I used to think stars were little holes in the sky, she said. Jacob smiled. They kind of are. Holes into other worlds. She nodded, then looked down. Do you think my mom is out there? Jacob paused. He didn't know what to say. But before he could answer, the ship's alarm buzzed. A red light blinked above the cockpit. Incoming ship detected, no ID, no response. Jacob rushed to the controls. He tapped the scanner. A small hunter ship was approaching fast. Silent, shielded, weapons ready. Trouble, Jacob muttered. He turned to Leary. Get under the floor panel now. She didn't argue. She slid into the emergency hatch beneath the floor. Jacob sealed it with one tap. The hunter ship hailed him. A voice came through, smooth, deep, and cruel. Human vessel, you carry stolen life. Surrender the creature and you'll live. Jacob activated his comm. Not happening. Then die for it. Blaster fire slammed into the hull. Sparks flew. The ship shook violently. Jacob gritted his teeth. You picked the wrong mechanic, pal. He pulled the ship into a sharp dive toward a nearby asteroid field. The Rust Bucket weaved between massive rocks. Some were big as cities. Some were sharp as knives. The bounty hunter chased close behind, lasers firing again and again. One blast hit the rear thruster. The lights flickered. Jacob grabbed a toolbox and started fixing it mid-flight, wires sparking around him. I said I'd protect. You kid, he muttered. I meant it. Leary held tight under the floor, eyes wide, feeling every explosion, every jolt. Jacob rerouted power and spun the ship through a broken mining station hidden among the rocks. Too slow, the hunter growled over comms. Too confident, Jacob replied. He activated an old mining laser still buried in the station. A red beam shot out, slicing across the hunter's wing. The ship tumbled, crashing into a spinning asteroid. Jacob didn't stop to celebrate. He pushed the engines forward. They vanished into the field. Hours later, the ship floated in quiet again. Jacob sat on the floor back against the wall, breathing hard. His hands were burned from the emergency repairs. Leary crawled out from the hatch and ran to him. You're hurt, he smiled. Just a little crispy. She hugged him, her tiny arms around his neck. You could have died. I've lived enough, he whispered. You haven't, that's what matters. She looked at him with her golden eyes. You don't act like the stories my people were told humans were cruel, selfish. Jacob smirked. Yeah, well, most of us are. I'm just the weird one. Back at the Galactic Law Station, the failed hunter limped into the comm room. He escaped, he growled. That human, he knows how to fly. The officer at the desk scowled. Triple the bounty, and warn the syndicates. This human isn't just protecting her, he's making her dangerous. The message spread across the stars. Now thousands of eyes were watching, not just for the child, but for the strange human who dared to stand against the whole galaxy for one little alien girl. And far away, inside a quiet drifting ship, Jacob watched Leary sleep. His ship was damaged, fuel was low, enemies were everywhere. but his promise remained strong. No one will take her from me. The stars looked peaceful, but peace was a lie. Jacob's ship, the Rust Bucket, flew low and slow, barely holding together after the last attack. Sparks dripped from the ceiling. Half the lights had gone dark. The engines groaned like an old animal, but Jacob didn't stop. He couldn't. Behind him, 3 bounty hunter ships followed, fast, armed, and ready to kill, and beside him, in a seat too big for her, sat Leary, the last Mirlin child, clutching a metal wrench like it was a sword. "They're still chasing us," she said softly. Jacob gave a small nod, keeping his eyes on the map. "They won't stop, Leary, but neither will I." He punched a few buttons and a massive red area lit up on the screen. Asteroid zone, uncharted, extremely dangerous. Jacob smiled. "Perfect." Leary blinked. "We're going in there?" "Yep." "Is that safe?" "Absolutely not." The Rust Bucket dove into the asteroid graveyard, a maze of spinning rocks, broken ships, and floating junk. Jacob gripped the controls with both hands. The ship weaved left, right, up, down, dodging rocks the size of buildings. Behind them, the bounty hunters followed. One of them laughed over the comms. "You just signed your death, human." Jacob didn't answer. Instead, he shut off his lights. Suddenly, their ship was a shadow in the dark. The hunters split up, trying to scan, but the rocks made it hard. Radar failed, gravity fields twisted. Jacob whispered to Leary, "Time to do some magic." He reached under his seat and pulled a small device, an old magnetic mine. Leary stared. "What's that?" "Bait." He threw it out the side window. Seconds later, a chasing ship picked up the heat signal and followed. The mine latched onto it and... boom! A fireball lit up the graveyard. One hunter down. Leary gasped. "That worked?" Jacob grinned. "Old tricks. Still gold." But the other 2 ships were smarter. They moved in together, boxing Jacob in. A voice came through the comms. "Nowhere to run, human. Hand over the creature." Jacob hit a switch. The engines flared. He launched the ship into a tight gap between 2 massive spinning rocks. The gap was narrow, barely wider than the Rust Bucket. Metal scraped. Alarms screamed. Leary screamed too. "We're going to crash," Jacob whispered. "Almost there." He spotted something ahead. A wrecked battleship, floating sideways inside the field. It had one open hangar door still barely working. Jacob aimed for it. Behind him, the 2 hunters followed, confident. But they didn't know the hangar's door had a broken magnet rail just inside. Jacob pulled up at the last second. The first hunter didn't. His ship hit the magnet rail, spun out of control, and slammed into the wall. Another explosion. Now only one was left. The last hunter stopped. He didn't enter the wreck. He hovered just outside, watching. Jacob parked deep inside the wrecked battleship. The power was off. It was cold, dark, and full of floating wires. Leary shivered. "Why aren't we leaving?" "Can't. No fuel. No power left," Jacob said, trying to restart the backup battery. "Nothing." He hit the panel hard. "Come on." The screen flickered. Just once. Then died again. The last hunter was closing in. Leary stood beside him, shaking. "I'm scared," she whispered. Jacob looked at her, and even in the dark, his tired face was calm. "I know, but we're not done yet." He opened a side panel in the floor and crawled under. Sparks flew as he tore wires and rebuilt the battery circuit by hand. His fingers burned. He was bleeding, but he didn't stop. "Can I help?" Leary asked. He smiled. "Yeah, talk to me. Keeps me awake." So she did. She told him about her planet, her mother, how they grew songs inside trees, and how each baby was given a star name when born. "What's yours?" Jacob asked. "Leary," she said. "It means hope after ash." Jacob paused. "Good. Name." Suddenly the engine lights blinked. Power returned. The hum of life came back. Jacob laughed. Let's fly. Outside, the last hunter ship locked onto the wreck's heat signal, but just as he moved closer, the rust bucket burst from the top of the battleship, shooting upward like a comet. Jacob fired the last of his engine fuel, using gravity and wreckage to slingshot away. The hunter tried to follow, but the rocks shifted. A giant asteroid slammed into his ship before he could escape. Crash, Jacob and Leary flew into the cold dark, damaged but free. Inside the ship, both of them sat in silence. No more power, no more fuel, just drifting. Leary held Jacob's arm and whispered, "You're not like the stories." Jacob looked down at her. "What stories?" "The ones where humans always leave." He leaned his head back and closed his eyes. "Yeah," he said softly, "but I'm writing a different one." The rust bucket floated silently in the emptiness of space. Power low, fuel gone, no signals sent, no signals received. Inside the quiet, Jacob sat beside Leary, both wrapped in a heat blanket. The emergency lights blinked softly, casting shadows across the worn metal walls. It felt like the end. Leary whispered, "Are we going to die here?" Jacob didn't lie. He looked at the blinking panel, sighed and said, "Maybe, but not if I can help it." Leary didn't cry. She simply leaned against him, golden eyes wide and trusting. For the first time, Jacob felt like someone's father again. Then, from the silence outside, a ping. The ship's emergency radar picked up something, a large object, closing in fast. Jacob rushed to the cockpit and stared at the scanner. The signal was old, coded in a pirate frequency. His eyes widened. No way. A dark, sharp-looking ship dropped out of warp, its hull covered in battle scars and wild paint. The name lit up in red letters. Night Whisper. Jacob smiled. Vexa. The docking clamp hissed as the pirate ship connected to the rust bucket. Moments later, the airlock slid open with a loud groan. Boots stepped in. Tall, strong, confident, it was Captain Vexa, a female alien with violet skin, silver dreadlocks, and eyes that glowed like moons. Her coat swayed behind her as she entered like a storm. "Still flying that trash bucket, Jacob?" she teased, arms crossed. Jacob laughed. "Still stealing from rich idiots, Vexa?" She grinned. "Always." Then she saw the small figure behind him. Leary peeked from the blanket, unsure. Vexa's smile faded, her eyes narrowed. "What is that?" Jacob stepped in front. "Her name is Leary. She's a child, a Mirellan, and she's under my protection." Vexa stared hard at him. "Jacob, do you have any idea what you're doing? The entire galaxy is hunting you. There's a bounty so big, half my crew begged me to collect it. And yet, you came anyway." Vexa didn't answer right away. She walked forward, knelt down in front of Leary and gently lifted her chin. "You're the last of your kind," Vexa said. "I thought your species was gone." Leary didn't speak. She just nodded. Vexa stood and looked Jacob in the eye. "I remember when you pulled me out of a burning hull during the Dren War," she said. "You had no reason to help me, but you did. I owe you." Jacob nodded. "I'm cashing in that favor now." Vexa returned to her ship and came back with supplies. Food, energy cells, and fresh oxygen tanks. Leary bit into real food for the first time in weeks. She smiled at Vexa. "Thank you, pirate lady." Vexa raised an eyebrow. "Call me that again, and I'll make you swab decks." Jacob chuckled. "She's warming up to you." Later, as Leary slept in the crew quarters, Jacob and Vexa stood in the hallway. "She's just a kid," Jacob said. "But they want her dead. They think she's dangerous." "She is dangerous," Vexa replied. "Not because of weapons. Because she reminds people of who they failed to protect. That scares the council more than guns." Jacob looked tired. "So what now?" Vexa took out a small data chip and handed it to him. Coordinates to an old human farming colony. Not part of the council, off-grid, peaceful. They might take you both in. "You're not coming?" "I can't," she said. "My life's a mess of trouble, but I can give you a chance." Jacob gripped the chip. "Thank you." Vexa smirked. Don't thank me yet. The second you leave, the trackers will pick up your jump signature. Jacob looked back at the sleeping girl. Then we better leave fast. As they prepared to depart, Vexa stood at the airlock. She looked at Leary one more time. You keep him alive, kid. He's older than he looks. Leary nodded. He's strong. Vexa's face softened. Yeah, he always was. With a final wave, the airlock closed, and the rust bucket broke free from the docking clamps. Fueled, repaired, and with a secret route in hand, Jacob entered the coordinates and hit warp. But even in the stars ahead, they didn't know that the Council had already learned of Vexa's betrayal, and they had sent something far worse than bounty hunters. They had sent the Quiet Reapers, silent, unstoppable, and already tracking Jacob's signal. High above the glowing rings of planet Oryx Prime, in a dark chamber floating in orbit, the Galactic Council gathered. 12 alien leaders sat in silence around a black circular table. No windows, no distractions, only whispers and anger. A screen hovered in the center, replaying footage of a human man carrying a Myrlan child through the ruins of a dead world. A counselor with glassy skin and 3 eyes clicked his fingers. This footage is real, a drone replied, confirmed. Human Jacob, formerly a registered mechanic, now classified rogue. He rescued a Myrlan child, protected her, escaped bounty traps with help from a pirate. Another voice hissed, she should not exist. The Myrlans are extinct. Not anymore, said a quiet councilwoman with golden robes. Her voice was calm but sharp. And the last one lives in the arms of a human. One counselor slammed a fist on the table. This cannot continue. If the galaxy sees this human protecting a banned species, others will follow. Chaos will rise. Another added, the child is a symbol now, not just of survival, but of our failure. What happens if other forgotten races rise up? There was a pause. Then came the voice of High Overseer Varnak, tall, cold-blooded, his eyes deep like a frozen lake. She must be captured, he said. Alive, the human too. We will not create martyrs. But what if they resist, one asked. Then, Varnak's voice turned colder. Send the Quiet Reapers. Far across space, unaware of the decision made above the stars, Jacob's ship cruised silently through a forgotten sector. The farming colony was still a day away. Inside, Jacob sat beside Leary, who was sketching with a digital pen on the table screen. She had drawn him, a little cartoon version with big hands and a tired smile. Next to him, a small blue girl held a flower. Jacob laughed softly. Is that me? Leary nodded. You look too serious in real life. He smiled. That's because we're being hunted by half the galaxy. Leary looked up. But you're still kind. Before he could answer, the ship's AI chimed. Incoming transmission, source encrypted, unknown vessel approaching fast. Jacob's face turned serious. Show me. The screen lit up, and what appeared wasn't a face. It was a symbol. A black spiral wrapped in silence. Jacob's breath caught. He recognized it instantly. The Quiet Reapers, he muttered. They found us. In council records, the Reapers weren't real. Just rumors. Shadows in dark files. But Jacob had seen what they did, years ago on the moon of Caltrix, when a whole city vanished overnight. No fire. No war. Just gone. They didn't talk. They didn't chase. They arrived and everything stopped. Jacob stood up quickly. Leary, get your things. Now. She froze. Is it more bounty hunters? No, he said. Worse. Back. In the council chamber, the Reapers had already been deployed. Varnak stood alone, watching their sleek black ships vanish into the void. No crew, no sound. Just automated destruction. An assistant walked in nervously. Sir, the media leak has spread. What leak? The footage of the human shielding the child. It's gone viral in the outer colonies. Varnak frowned. Shut it down. We can't. Too many downloads. People are calling the girl the Star Child. They say she's proof that kindness still exists in the galaxy. Varnak turned, sharply. That child is a threat, a story people will die for. On board the rust bucket, Jacob pushed the engine to max. Alarms blared. The ship wasn't built for high-speed chases anymore. The Reaper ship followed calmly. No lasers, no shouting, just following. Jacob launched a decoy flare. The Reaper ship ignored it. He sent fake jump signals. Still, it followed. Leary asked, "Why doesn't it fire at us?" Jacob's face was pale. Because Reapers don't waste time. They don't threaten. They end. He punched in emergency. Coordinates, an old friend's hideout deep inside a nebula. If we make it there, maybe we disappear. The stars stretched as the warp engine activated, and in that very second, just before they jumped, Leary looked out the window and saw something that made her gasp. Not one Reaper ship. 3, coming from different directions. They vanished into hyperspace. But behind them, in the cold silence of the cosmos, the galaxy had changed, because one small child now held the heart of millions. And one human had made the council afraid. The rust bucket slammed out of hyperspace, sparks flying from its sides. Alarms screamed. The ship spun for a few seconds before Jacob managed to stabilize it. Smoke filled the cockpit. Leary coughed, gripping the armrest tightly. Where are we?" Jacob looked out the cracked glass. They had made it. A giant cloud of color surrounded them, blue and gold, green and purple. The nebula of Vion Prime. A hiding place only pirates and ghosts remembered. Inside, floating gently, was a massive rock covered in green fields, farms, and domes. An old human. "Colony still alive," Jacob sighed with relief. "We're safe. For now." They landed on the outer field. Farmers came running. Old humans, brown-skinned, strong, wearing worn jackets and boots. At first, they aimed weapons. Then they saw Jacob step out, carrying Leary in his arms, her small, blue face leaning on his shoulder, and they saw the Reaper burns on his ship. Silence fell. An older man stepped forward. He had silver hair and one metal arm. His voice was rough. "Jacob, you're supposed to be dead." Jacob chuckled weakly. Almost was, more than once. The man's eyes shifted to Leary. "That's her, isn't it?" Jacob nodded. "She's the last. And they won't stop until she's gone." The old man looked around, then back at Jacob. "Then they'll have to come through all of us first." News of Jacob's arrival spread like wildfire across the colony. People came from every corner. Mothers, farmers, engineers, even kids. Leary sat on the grass, surrounded by human children her size. They listened as she softly told stories of her people, how they used to live in trees that sang in the wind, how they named every child after a star. The kids didn't laugh. They didn't judge. They listened, and Leary smiled. In the command room of the colony, Jacob met with the elders. "We can hide her," the leader said. "There are caverns deep in the moon beneath us." Jacob shook his head. "No, I won't hide her like she's something to be ashamed of." "Then what do you suggest?" Jacob stood and pointed to the sky. "We show the galaxy who she is." Meanwhile, far across space, the Council's worst fear had come true. The Star Child had become a symbol. All over the outer colonies, people wore blue ribbons in support. Posters were printed. Songs were written. Videos of Jacob saving her were shared on 1,000 systems. Even in secret rebel worlds, soldiers raised their weapons and shouted, "For the child, for the man who stood alone." Varnak, the High Overseer, watched it all in fury. He slammed his fist against the wall. "They want heroes? Then let them die with their myths." He ordered the final assault. A fleet of Black Reaper ships, 20 total, was sent to destroy the colony. Back on Vion Prime, Jacob stood on a hill watching the sky. He felt it. They're coming. The colony sounded the alarm. But Jacob didn't run. Neither did the farmers. And when the Reaper fleet entered the nebula, they didn't find a scared human and a helpless child. They found resistance. The humans had reactivated old defense turrets. They had planted EMP mines across the nebula trails. They had called in help, pirate allies, rogue freighters, even bounty hunters who had once chased Jacob but now stood with him. Why? Because this wasn't about a bounty anymore. This was about what was right. The battle was long and brutal. Turrets fired from the domes. Ships danced through fire. Reapers fell one by one. And at the center of it all in the control tower stood Leary, her hand on a signal button. She was sending out a message to every planet, every screen, every station. I am Leary, child of the Meyerlands. I was left to die, but a human saved me. He gave me food, hope, and a home. My people are gone, but I live. And because of him, I'm not alone anymore. The galaxy paused to listen. Even Reaper ships hesitated. One by one, they shut down. Somewhere in the programming, maybe something ancient stirred. Or maybe mercy finally found its way into the machine. The war ended, not with an explosion, but with a message, and that message became legend. Years passed. The colony grew into a peaceful city. The story of the human and the Meyerland child was taught in schools, sung in songs, and carved into walls. Leary grew tall, her golden eyes wise and full of life. She called Jacob father until the day he died peacefully in his sleep, holding her hand. And when asked how the world changed, she always smiled and said, "It changed when one man didn't walk away,